Thank you for that, visitors. Oh, wow. Thank you for reminding us of how much we need Jesus, and may this be the song in our hearts all the day, that we can let our own pride and our own will be in submission to His and surrender to Him. So thanks again. So today we're going to talk about the clothing of Christ. Not what He actually wore, but what a follower of Christ will wear. So it's a common topic. We've all, I'm sure, heard a fair bit about it. But we just have a few little things that you might not have heard before. So I hope we can all learn something today. So why do reformers not wear jewellery, makeup, pants, short skirts, singlets, or stubbies? You know what stubbies are? Not the beer, no, the clothing. I'll show you later. So our scripture reading was from 1 Thessalonians 5:23. The very God of peace sanctify you wholly, and I pray God your whole spirit, soul, and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. And we think about this reading a little bit. Why does he say three things here? Spirit, soul, and body to be preserved blameless. Well, we can think of this as in three layers that we can obey God. The first is the body. We need to obey God in our physical health. You know, there's a quote that says, the law of God is written on every fibre in our being. In other words, the way we treat our body is reflected, the way we treat our body is governed by the law of God in physical health. So in other words, it's against God's law if we want to smoke cigarettes or if we want to drink alcohol, because these harm our body. So we have to be blameless in our body in that sense. We have to be blameless in our spirit or our attitude. In other words, we can't be angry all the time, or we can't be naughty in our thoughts. We have to be holy and pure and blameless in the sight of God. And lastly, for our soul to be preserved blameless, how do we do that? There's not a lot we can do, but there's something we can believe, and that's that Jesus Christ died for our sins, and His righteousness is now our righteousness. That's the only way our soul can be preserved blameless, and so we have to maintain that faith and that connection with God, that we will retain the blameless character of Jesus Christ, and not our own. So let's go through these very quick, hopefully fairly quickly. Number one, we're going to start with health. How do we preserve our body blameless before God? And we do that primarily, obviously we have diet, we talked about that before, but another way we preserve our health is through dressing, through the ways that we dress. Now we remember Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. What did they wear originally? Nothing, or maybe they had a robe of light, and they were without shame. And it says that in Genesis 2:25, they were both naked and they were not ashamed. Now what happened after they disobeyed God? What happened to their attitude? It changed, but how? Now they are ashamed of what they wore. And it says that in 3:10, Adam said to God, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. He wasn't hiding necessarily because he was afraid of God, but it says here, he was hiding because he was naked and ashamed now. So what did God say to them? Did he say to them, okay, don't be ashamed, don't worry about it, just come out of hiding, it's okay. I'm God, I know what's under those fig leaves, don't worry about it. Did God say that? How did God respond to Adam and Eve's shame of nakedness? He did. He gave them coats of skins, and He covered their nakedness. What else did God clothe Adam and Eve? Oh, sorry, why else did God clothe Adam and Eve? Sorry, I should mention, I was supposed to mention here, the clothing of Adam and Eve was and the taking away of their nakedness was a beautiful symbol of God giving back Adam and Eve their innocence, giving them back their righteousness that they had before they sinned. So saying, now you're ashamed because you're naked, and the symbol of that is because they are sinful, but now God's going to clothe you with His righteousness or His coats of skins, and now you have no need to be ashamed before God because He's forgiven you and He only sees Christ's righteousness on you. Now, that's the first reason why God gave them coats of skins, but why else did God clothe them? Was there another reason that God gave them animal skins? The atmosphere was changed. It was no longer unvarying as before the transgression. God clothed them with coats of skins to protect them from the sense of chilliness and then of heat to which they are exposed. That's in 3 Spiritual Gifts, page 46, by E.G. White. So now the atmosphere had changed. They needed clothes to protect them, right, from the atmosphere, from the environment. So that's another reason why God gave them clothing. Not just for the symbol, but now for health. We don't need to do that. I've got a very long quote here. I'm going to read it really fast, but you can follow on the screen. So, so hopefully you can all see that. So it says here, special attention should be given to the extremities, that they may be as thoroughly clothed as the chest and the region over the heart, where is the greatest amount of heat. When the extremities, which are remote from the vital organs, are not properly clad, the blood is driven to the head, causing headache or nosebleed, or there is a sense of fullness about the chest, producing cough or palpitation of the heart on account of too much blood in that locality, or the stomach has too much blood, causing indigestion. In order to follow the fashions, mothers dress their children with limbs nearly naked, and the blood is chilled back from its natural course and thrown upon the internal organs, breaking up the circulation and producing disease. The limbs were not formed by our Creator to endure exposure as was the face. The Lord provided also large veins and nerves for the limbs and feet to contain a large amount of the current of human life, that's blood, that the limbs might be uniformly as warm as the body. They should be so thoroughly closed as to induce the blood to the extremities. So that was a long passage, but basically what it's saying is that you have a whole lot of blood vessels in your body, and when you are cold, all the blood in those vessels goes into your center, right, to retain heat in your core. So this is the most important part. If you lose heat in your core, you're going to die. So the blood comes out of your arms and out of your legs and comes to your center in order to keep you warm. Now the problem with that is, if it's there too long, or if there's too much blood here, it's going to cause problems in your head, in your stomach, and as we read, in your lungs. So it's going to cause you problems if you have too much blood in those areas by exposing your limbs and making your limbs cold. How else can cleanliness, how does cleanliness enter into how we dress? We talked about the limbs needing to have sufficient warmth in order to retain blood in the extremities, not drive it all to the center. But how is cleanliness involved in our dress? If you go to work, you don't wear your church clothes, right? Why? It's going to get dirty. Now, God has given us covering also to keep the dirt of the environment out of our bodies, because as you know, your skin is very absorptive. I was working on an avocado orchard in the north, and we would spray all day. I think it was called Lawson spray, very powerful stuff, very bad stuff. And we had to dress in full rain gear, we had hoodies, everything, in order to keep the spray from us. So clothing is very protective against things in the environment. And also we read in Exodus 19:10, the Lord said unto Moses, go unto the people, sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and be ready against the third day, for the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. Why did God tell them to wash their clothes? He didn't want dirtiness, right? It's respectful to come before God with clean attire. And also, if you didn't know, if you work all day and then you have a shower, go to bed, wake up in the morning and put the same clothes on that you wore the previous day, all that dirt on those clothes are reabsorbed back into your skin, and now you're bringing impurities into your body. So we need clean clothes, and we need clothes to protect us against the heat and against the environment, things in the environment. So that's health, protection, keeping our temperature balanced, and to keep us clean. Now attitude, remember it said, I pray God that you will be preserved blameless in your soul, body, in your spirit, body, spirit, and soul. So we've done body. Now let's look at how you might be preserved blameless in your spirit through dress. What type of dress should we wear? Should a Christian follower wear when we're talking about men and women's clothing? What should we wear? Should I come to church with a skirt?
Yes, please.
Joseph might like to see it, but I can tell you a lot of people won't. Now we recognise here that there are other cultures, of course, like Samoans and other island cultures that do have a different type of dress, but there's still a difference between the male and the female. So the principle here is making a distinction between the sexes. And it says this in verse 2. Wait, sorry. I jumped ahead. I'm going to come back to that. But I'll get that scripture later. Another thing is we must be modest, right? So we don't come to church, we do come to church in good clothes and clean clothes, but we don't have big gold chains and bling hanging off our necks, right? We don't have a huge hat with full of, what do they do? Like full of fruit and stuff, some people wear. We don't come here to make people look at us. We want to give God the glory today and every day, really. So that's why, and Paul said in 1 Timothy, he said, in like manner also that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broidered hair or gold or pearls or costly array. So in other words, don't fill yourself up with jewellery and fancy things to make people look at you. Because we're not here to look at each other, we're here to look at God. What do the proud wear? If the humble don't wear these things, then it makes sense that this is the sort of dress that the proud wears, right? All their works they do for to be seen of men. That's the whole point of the proud man's dress, is to make people look at him. Now we can see a list of the ways in which he does that in Isaiah 3. So let's turn there in Isaiah chapter 3 and verses 16 through to 23. We'll just read it. Isaiah 3, verses 16 through to 23. Now there's a lot of old-fashioned words here, so I'm just going to flick them up on the screen and give you the definition as we go. I'm not going to go through them because you're going to get the general idea. So Isaiah chapter 3 and starting at verse 16. Moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty. You know what haughty means? Proud. I'm better than you. I'm arrogant. I'm better than you. I'm haughty. Conceited. And Moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, and walking and mincing as they go. Mincing here is a reference to the way they walk, and it's replicated by wearing high heels, by the way. Mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. How would they do that? Yeah. What do they call them? Anklets? I don't know. You can have little bells. I don't know what they wore back then, but in other words, they're dressing their feet to make people look at them. And we'll go through. Therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. And that day the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet and their calls. You know what a call is? That's a call, Princess Leia, but regardless of the person, the call is a headdress with a net about its base. So he's going to take away the tinkling ornaments about their feet, their calls, and their round tears, like the moon. Round tears. I don't know, is that how you say it? Tears or tires? Tears, tires? It's an old headdress. They put something huge on their head. We have a reference to that in 2 Kings. You know Jezreel and Jezebel, the naughty wife of Ahab. Was it Ahab or Ahaz? Ahab. Okay. The naughty wife. When something was going to happen, she painted her face and tied her head. Put a headdress on and put makeup on. Now, continue on. What else is the Lord going to take away from these haughty people? He's going to take away their chains and their bracelets. Well, that's obvious. He's going to take away their mufflers. It's not about noise. It's about, again, pride and of display. It was a veil more elaborate and costly than ordinary. The bonnets and the ornaments of the legs, the headbands and the tablets. Bella's going to lose her tablet. Is that what a tablet is? No, it's a type of perfume, actually. Very expensive type of perfume. The earrings, the rings, and the nose jewels. Very common today nowadays. Lord's going to take away the changeable suits of apparel. And the mantles, which is like a thing over here, like this weird king used to wear, or prince, whatever it is. He's going to take away the wimples, which is like a fancy shawl. This is cool. I like this on South American, but you can have like a real expensive fancy one. But still, you wouldn't wear this to church, would you? It's kind of like a peacock. Like, look at me. The Lord's going to take away this because it's a symbol of pride. It is pride. He's going to take away the crisping pins. Crisping pin is like a fancy purse covered in jewels. And again, it's for display. It's to show others how rich or how wonderful I am. He's going to take away the glasses. Whoa, Brother Eric, how are you going to read your Bible? But that's not the glasses we're talking about. We're talking about the mirror. You're going to stop looking in the glass. Look, remember Alice and the Looking Glass? Is that something in the Looking Glass anyway? He's going to take away the fine linen, the hoods, and the veils. Some of these things aren't bad in themselves, obviously, but the problem is when it becomes an item for display or an item for show to generate attention to myself instead of attention to God. So that's the reason. God said all these things belong to the pride, and He's going to take them away. He's going to get rid of them. And instead, Peter instructs us, let it not be that outward adorning of plaiting of hair, wearing of gold, putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, and that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which in the sight of God of great price. So instead of wearing all these flashy things, God says, wear a meek and quiet spirit, which is the true beauty, the true ornament that we should be wearing. Now, we talked a lot about these different things, veils and headdresses and fine linen. When do we sometimes wear these things? When does the church not condemn these things? Do you know? At a wedding, yes. Now, why don't we condemn the wearing of these things at a wedding? Why is it okay to wear a long... How much did your dress cost, Sister Amy? Oh, okay, can't say. People spend a lot on Christmas dresses, on wedding dresses. But we don't look down on that, do we? In fact, we encourage it. We encourage people to look their absolute best for this occasion. You know why? It's not just an ordinary day out, is it? It's a single day of your life in most cases, in a lot of cases, and hopefully all cases. But yeah, it's a single day that takes place on that. And it's not just your day, but it's also a symbol of Christ and His church. It's a symbol of what happens when Jesus Christ marries His church. And in fact, you'll find that in Revelation 19, it talks about the Lamb's wife, and she has fine, I think 19 and 20, that she has fine linen, and she's adorned with jewels even. So God marries His wife who's dressed in very beautiful and very expensive clothing. And so it's not something that we're going to condemn here. Now, what about our dress? How does it indicate who we are? I don't know if I should say this. For me, if I'm looking at if I'm looking for a single woman and I see one with a shorter dress, or shorter skirt, do you know what I think? If it's too short, I'm going to think, okay, bad things. But if it's just sort of short, you know what I'm going to think? I think that's like a child. Sort of, it's like a playful, happy child, but not really a dignified woman. If I look at a lady and she's got a full dress, like down to her ankles, that's when I think, wow, that's not a girl, that is a lady, beautiful lady. So if you're a single woman and you want a playmate, maybe wear the shorter dress. But if you want a man, wear the longer dress. Just saying. Yeah. We're going to talk about the length of dress later. Yeah, I'm not saying go wear a miniskirt. No, we'll talk about that later. Now, God, in the time of Israel, He instructed the Israelites to wear a ribbon of blue in their garment. Why was that? Yeah, they were a peculiar people. It separated them from the pagans in that area. So when they could look upon each other, they say, this has a ribbon of blue. That reminds me, I belong to a special group of people. I belong to the children of God. I'm different from these other people. Not that we have to go out of our way to make ourselves different, but you'll notice that our standard of dress does make us different. People will say we're weird and we look funny, but that's because we don't look like them, because we look like the children of God. So that's another reason that the way we dress is an indication of who we are. And 1 Peter says, you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of Him who has called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. or actually talking about peculiar people in my job. Oops. In my job, I overheard one of my workmates talking to my boss. He said, that Doug, he's weird. He's weird. You know why? Because whenever they start talking about, this is a building industry, so they're got terrible thoughts all the time. Whenever they start talking about what they did last night, you know what I mean, I walk away. I don't want to hear that sort of stuff. And they say, every time we talk about this sort of stuff, Doug he doesn't like it. And so that to them, that's weird. But to God, that's indication of that we belong to Him. Also, not only between ourselves, but we judge a person's character by the style of dress worn. And I talked about how when I see a lady with a shorter dress, I think of her as like a child, and when I see a lady with a longer dress, I think of her as a lady. It's a natural characteristic of people. When we look at people, immediately we're going to sum them up based on what we see. First, obviously, when we get to know them, that might change a bit. But when we first see someone, the first impression, we're going to judge them by the way they look. And actually, I've heard that for men, it's your shoes and your neckline or something like that. Shoes and your neckline. And for women, it's your hair and something else I can't remember. But yeah, first impressions are a big thing, and we do judge people based on what they wear. What about purity? Now we're talking about our attitude. How does the way we dress affect purity amongst ourselves? It's a pretty obvious question, right? I mean, if I came in here with a mini skirt, I don't think it would affect many people's purity. But if a beautiful woman came in here with a mini skirt, that might be a problem to some men, or to all men, maybe. I don't know. Jesus says, if you look at a woman with lust, you've already committed adultery with her in your heart. So if we're dressing in a way that causes other people to look at us with lust, we are in fact enabling them to commit sin. We're enabling them to break the law of God. It's a very serious thing, the way we dress when we're talking about purity. Now this verse here, Proverbs 11:12, as a jewel of gold in a swine's snout, so is a fair woman that is without discretion. Now without discretion, it can mean like, and when we're talking about dress, I'm wearing very little. I don't have any discretion about my exposure or whatever. So Solomon, I think it was Solomon that wrote this, he said, that's like putting a beautiful jewel in a pig's snout, because the beautiful jewel is a woman's beauty, right? She's beautiful, but she treats her beauty with such a disdain that she allows herself to be exposed. And King Solomon said, that's like putting this beautiful jewel in a dirty pig's snout. So when we see a woman, she's got a full dress on, she's very elegant, we think, wow, that's a beautiful woman. But in our hearts, I think, when we see a woman and she's wearing one of these little skirts and maybe a little halter top or something, we're not thinking she's a beautiful woman. I don't think so. And finally, what I was talking about before, the woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are an abomination unto God. And you have to be careful when you say these sorts of things nowadays, especially this way. It's Pride. I think it's like Pride festivals. I see the rainbow flags everywhere. So we're not going to go out and we're going to start condemning people. But within ourselves, just here in our church, we can understand it is an abomination for us to wear the garments of the opposite sex. I think we all know that. And what else? We already talked about. I got that slide in there. Now the length of our dress. Now we're really going to focus the rest of it on the length of the dress, because most of us don't come to work and to go around town with spaghetti straps, all these things, or we don't walk around the mall in a bikini or things like that. The most controversial thing that we have as a church is the length of the dress. So what should be the length of the dress? Okay, depends upon your height. Okay, let's have a look. The dress should reach somewhat below the top of the boot, but should be short enough to clear the filth of the sidewalk and street without being raised by... No, sorry, I should explain. All these quotes are going to be taken from the Spirit of Prophecy. So for those of you who are not very familiar with the Spirit of Prophecy, just understand this is sort of an instruction that we take, the principles that we take quite seriously from this Christian author back in the 1800s. We believe them to be inspired by God, so that's why we'll be reading quite a few quotes. Now, back in the 1800s, the problem back then was women really loved to display a certain style of dress, and that involved, like, they had remember whale bones, making their dress splay out like this. They had all sorts of jewels and ornaments and sewing and everything, and the dresses were very long, so much so that they would drag on the street when they walked. And back then, sanitation was not too good in the street, so obviously if you've got a long dress dragging on the ground, it's going to pick up a lot of things from the street. Mud, filth, whatever, sewage, I don't know what was on the street exactly, but it's a very dirty way to live. So the council here is saying it should be short enough to clear the street. We don't want to be picking up all the filth off the street. And when she gave us this instruction, she said, my views were calculated to correct the present fashion, that's that long dress, the extreme long dress trailing upon the ground, and also to correct the extreme short dress reaching about to the knees. Now, most of us wouldn't have thought an extreme short dress would be knee length, right? But here it's written that the extreme short dress is knee length. Whatever may be the length of the dress, females should clothe their limbs as thoroughly as the males. This may be done by wearing lined pants gathered into a band fastened at the ankles, should come down long enough to meet the shoe. The limbs and ankles are thus protected against the current of air. Clothes are protected against the current of air. So in other words, she's saying, wear something under your dress. For me, I understand that if you're in a cold place, and we talked about the extremities needing to be clothed in order to not drive the blood into the center of the body. If you're in a cold place and you're not well clothed on your limbs, that's going to create issues. So in this case, she's saying you should wear something under your dress. Probably for health reasons, not so much for modesty. Maybe not. Now, we talked about that the dress should come below the top of the boot. Now, what type of boot, though? Because there have been many people who say, she's talking about the knee-high boots. But remember, she already said that a knee-length dress is an extreme short dress. But she qualifies this. There's no need to guess. She said, by top of the boot, I designed to be understood the top of a boot or gaiter shoe usually worn by women back in those days. And she actually had a shoe in one of these, and she said, mine is 8 inches high. So we're not talking knee height. This one is only 8 inches high. Now, she had a vision, and she saw 3 different types of dress, and she wanted to, this is how she gave counsel on the length of the dress. She said, 3 companies of females passed before me with their dress as follows with respect to their length. The first, burdening the limbs, that we're talking about the big long dress again, impeding the step and sweeping the street, gathering its filth, the evil results of which I have fully stated. The dress of the second class had gone to that extreme in the short dress as to disgust and prejudice good people, and destroy in a great measure their own influence. It does not reach to the knee. I need not say that this style of dress was shown me to be too short. So here she's saying there's a style of dress that it didn't reach the knee, and it's an extremely short dress. And notice here this part in bold, she says, I need not say. What does that mean? It's obvious. I don't have to tell you that this type of dress is too short. It's obviously too short if it doesn't reach the knee. Oh, sorry, and there was one more there. The third company, the third class passed before me with cheerful countenances and free, elastic step. Their dress cleared the filth of the street and sidewalk a few inches. So in other words, this happy class, they had a few inches above the street. Yeah, and I'll just read this again, because I put a little bit extra here. My views were calculated to correct the present fashion, the extreme long dress trailing upon the ground, and also to correct the extreme short dress reaching about to the knees. By wearing the dress reaching about to the top of a woman's gaiter boot, we shall escape the evils of the extreme long dress and also shun the evils and notoriety of the extreme short dress. So we've got a clear position here. Extremely long and extremely short, which is about to the knees. And both are no good. Now, we have something called the reform dress, and and the fourth volume of the Testimonies, 636, she said God designed the reformed dress. So whatever we're going to talk about when we say reformed dress, it was designed of God. Now, back then, they didn't have all these principles to start with in their church, so they were learning as they go. And when she started talking about dress length, man, she got so many letters of people asking, why, what's the length, what's the exact length, I want to know how long, how short is too short, how long is too long. So she made an answer. She said, in answer to the letters of inquiry from many sisters relative to the proper length of the reformed dress, I would say that in our part of the state of Michigan, we have adopted the uniform length of about 9 inches from the floor. 9 inches as nearly accords with my views of the matter as I am able to express it in inches. So in other words here, 9 inches, by the way, is about 200 and less than just short of 250 millimeters, 25 centimeters. About that big. 9 inches. 9 inches above the floor. Now she's saying here it's as nearly accords with my views as she's able to express because, like someone said before, we're going to have tall people, we're going to have short people. For very tall people, you might have a little bit more allowance. And for very short people, you're going to have a shorter distance from the floor. Because, if you're halfway up the leg of a very tall person, that's maybe halfway up maybe up to the knee of a very short person, yeah. So obviously we have a little bit of deviation here, but 9 inches is the approximate. Now, this is amazing because it's very rare to find in the writings of Ellen White anything that's exact. Like she won't say you have to eat this much food, like 4 cups of food for your meal. She won't say that because she recognizes individuality. But with dress, she's given a standard, an approximate standard of 9 inches. Now, but she also said something that's interesting. She said a still shorter dress than this would be proper, convenient, and helpful for females when doing their housework. So, I don't know if that means going to the office is the same as doing housework, because some women don't do housework nowadays. They instead go out and work full-time jobs instead of spending all day doing the laundry. But when she's saying housework, she's saying women who are staying at home. There's a shorter dress that will be proper and convenient. Now, what's the length of the working dress? In regard to the wearing of the short dress, I would say I have but one short dress, which is not more than a finger length shorter than the dresses I usually wear. So just as much shorter. We're not going to go crazy, all right? Just a little bit shorter. 4 or 5 sisters of the Battle Creek Church have prepared themselves for a short dress to wear while doing their washing and cleaning. A short dress has not been worn in the streets of the city of Battle Creek and has never been worn to meetings. So it's a home dress for when you're doing your housework. And it's not even that much shorter. Now this might be quite surprising to us, some of these things, because when we think today, like we look out in the world today, there's not a lot of women that wear long dresses, and most of it is quite short. And when we see words like that, it's quite strange. Even to me, when I was reading, I was like, wow, I didn't know that about reaching to the knee. I thought that was not so bad, maybe a little bit short, but she's saying it's extremely short. It's surprising to us. So, yeah, just be aware that we're all in the same boat. This is another one about the style of dress. Even if it is a working dress, it should be made becoming. Sisters, when about their work, should not put on clothing which would make them look like images to frighten the crows from the corn. What does that mean? Yeah, you don't want to look like a scarecrow, you want to look good still. It is more gratifying to their husbands and children to see them in a becoming, well-fitting attire than it can be to mere visitors or strangers. Some wives and mothers seem to think it is no matter how they look when about their work and when they are only seen by their husbands and children. No, I won't ask. But they are very particular to dress in taste for the eyes of those who have no special claims upon them. Today that might be the equivalent of the wife stays home with the track pants. I don't know. But yeah, the husband too, man. You got to put some effort into looking good for your wife as well. But anyway, is not the esteem and love of the husband and children more to be prized than that of strangers or common friends? The happiness of husband and children should be more sacred to every wife and mother than that of all others. So in other words, dress well for your husband. Don't look like a scarecrow. Now, I've heard the argument that some will say that, well, the way I dress is between me and God, but what does your impure thoughts have to do with the way I'm dressing? It's your problem if you have a problem with lust that I can't wear a short skirt. Does that make sense? Oh, by the way, Sister Rachel, can you come now that you're here? Please. This is about 9 inches from the floor, by the way.
Inches?
This is about 9 inches, about just under 250. Sister Rachel's skirt there. So this is what we're talking about. It's not a. That's about 9 inches, yeah. So we're not talking like we have to be full on covered ankles and everything, but we still have to have some sort of length there. Now, what we're saying, some people say it's your problem that you have a problem with lust, not my problem. I should be able to dress how I want and let you sort out your own problem. But look at this in Romans 14. It is neither good to eat flesh nor to drink wine nor anything whereby thy brother stumbleth or is offended or is made weak. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not please ourselves. Let every one of us please his neighbour for his good to edification, for even Christ pleased not himself, but as it is written, the reproaches of them that reproached thee fell upon me. So in other words, even if we weren't accountable for the way we make other people think, still God says it is your responsibility to help your brother. It is your responsibility to dress in such a way that you're not going to cause them to stumble or to be offended. It is not your dress that makes your value in the Lord's sight, it is the inward adorning, the graces of the Spirit, the kind word, the thoughtful consideration for others that God values. Now, if I have a problem and you just keep on continuing the way that you want to, despite your knowledge of my problem, that's not consideration, is it? I wouldn't go to an alcoholic's house, I'm not looking at anybody, no. I wouldn't go to an alcoholic's house and crack open a bottle of beer in front of them, right? I wouldn't do that at all, actually, but I'm just saying we don't go out of our way to make someone's life harder than it already is. What about men, though? All this talk, we'll talk about a lot about the length of the dress, but what about men? What do you reckon?
Yeah, the same. If you don't wear a knee, why should the men wear shorts?
Yeah. If we're going to ask the ladies to wear something that'll cover the knee and be 9 inches above the ground, all this sort of thing, is it that hard of us to also involve ourselves in that example? This is, I used to wear these until a couple of months ago. These are stubbies. They're stained because I wear them a lot. I wore them a lot to work. Those are stubbies. Now, if I have an idea that my thighs of brass will be a problem to the ladies, well, I'm not going to wear it, right? Maybe I'll wear them swimming still. I don't know. This is what I wear on my top. I hate being so hot, man. So I can't even wear a t-shirt sometimes. So I'll wear the singlet, right? Sort of I don't know what you call samba. Yeah. So I'll wear that at work, but I'm not going to wear it down the street if my golden guns are going to make a lady have a problem, right? So we have to think. So we have to think of other people, right? We have to dress in a way that we know that we're not going to cause other people to stumble or studies. So we went through. We had warmth, protection, and cleanliness for preserving our body blameless. We had humility. Remember, not dressing with fancy stuff. And we had identity. Remember, the blue ribbon of the Israelites is like our standard of dress today for us. We're recognized as children of God. And we had purity. We're not going to cause impure harm to other people. Now, the final thing we're going to talk about is our souls. What has dress got to do with our soul? Now, remember, in Isaiah, it talks about what our righteousness looks like. What is our righteousness compared to God's? What's a metaphor used for our righteousness? Just filthy rags, right? All we are is an unclean thing. All our righteousnesses are as filthy rags. So the best thing that we can do is still a filthy rag before God. Now, what exchange can we make with this filthy rags? You know, when we go to trade in, and I had a Commodore VM, and it was I bought it for $800 and I thrashed it and made it worth even less. Do you think I'd get much for that trade-in? No, I didn't even try, actually. I used to go to the petrol station, I would fill up and all the petrol would be pouring out the tank because it had rust holes in the tank. So it was real bad, but I wouldn't get much for that trade-in. But do you know the amazing training we get for our filthy rags of our character? Yeah, we have an example here in Zechariah. Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. And he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, Take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, Behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with a change of raiment. And I said, Let them set a fair mitre upon his head. And they set a fair mitre upon his head, and clothed him with garments, and the angel of the Lord stood by. So here we had an exchange taking place. Joshua had filthy garments, and the Lord said, Take his filthy garments off him, and give him a change of raiment. And the change of raiment, we won't go through it. It's the fine linen, like we're talking about the bride. The fine linen of the bride, she's adorned with jewels and ornaments. A beautiful, perfect robe was given unto Joshua. And what does that represent? Well, Jesus said to the church in Revelation 3:18, I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment. The white raiment represents the righteousness of Christ, right? We have no righteousness of our own, but when we give our filthy rags to Jesus Christ, and we say, Lord, forgive me for my sins, bless me with your righteousness, He looks upon us as we have never sinned, and that's represented by a beautiful white and adorned linen. The most beautiful dress He bids us to wear upon the soul, that's this one. The beautiful dress, the righteousness of Jesus Christ, the gift of God for the sinner. Now, when we wear this gift of God, we have a change of heart. I'm sure we've all experienced this. Most of us have experienced this. And we want to do what's written in this book. And Paul says, I beseech you by the mercies of God that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. We want to please God. We want to do all that we can that will honour Him and glorify Him and His nature. And so when we've had these filthy garments taken from us, when we've been clothed in the white, fine linen of Jesus Christ, there's going to be a change in our dress. We're not going to go to work. Maybe you go to work in stubbies if it's only men around, there's no problem there, right? But you're not going to go around town the way you used to. I'm not going to go to the mall in a bikini. I'm not going to go to... Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. We're going to have a change in our attitude, and there's going to be a change in our dress. And God said, in the last book of the Bible, He said, Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. Now, this is talking about spiritual garments, obviously, but it's going to be the same thing. If we are watching our spiritual garments, watching our character, watching the way that we live, and giving glory and honor to God, it's going to be manifest in the way we dress. So may God help us all to understand how He wants us to dress. And, sorry, before I finish, I just remembered, I've got one more quote. It's very important, very, very important. We're going to have a change in our own dress, but now that we've changed our own dress, do you know how to tell if someone's a vegan? You don't worry, they'll tell you. Now, we can't be like these militant vegans, right? You understand that? Don't worry, they'll tell you. If anyone's a vegan, it's like their gospel now. It's like their religion. They've got to convert everyone to veganism. We want to do that, but people say that's very annoying. Now, we don't want to be like this when we have a change of our dress. This is found in Child Guidance 428. There is no need to make the dress question the main point of your religion. There is something richer to talk of. Talk of Christ. And when the heart is converted, everything that is out of harmony with the Word of God will drop off. So we don't want to go around with a measuring tape and checking everyone's skirts that are 9 inches above the floor, right? We have our own character, our own business to worry about. Let's not worry about the business of others. We can inform them, we can inform people and try and get the truth out there, but let's not make judgments and let's not make the way of others harder than it needs to be. May God bless us and thank you all. In Jesus' name, amen. We'll now sing.
So they have some place.